Have you ever really liked something but never been quite a fan? Yeah, that's Megaman for me. I've never been the local Megaman friend that has way too much knowledge on all of the side series and stuff. Nah, I mostly just like the X games for the gameplay, the Zero games for the vibes, and sometimes their gameplay. For Zero game was kind of rough sometimes. But that probably makes me like the most basic bitch of Mega Man tourists. I realize those are the two most popular sub-series, but I don't really mind. They're games I had a ton of fun with. But time took its toll, Mega Man games released way less, I had way less time to play games, and definitely less to step out of my comfort zone and find new action platformers. Over time, it's not just the Blue Bombers games, but like the entire genre of games that I've deserted, while still keeping a fond love for it in my little heart. And one fateful day, a friend of mine asked whether I knew about the Azure Striker Gunvolt series. I kinda knew about it. I knew the devs were Megaman Zeros, I knew it was somewhat of a spiritual successor, I remember GV's ponytail that counted. Turns out, it was the last day of a sale on the Azure Striker Gunvolt Striker Pack, which included the first and second game. So, I did the most sensible thing. This game oozes core, and that could be a good or bad thing depending on what follows. For starters, we're just gonna run through my first impressions. So, Sunbook tries to use an electric type attack against Gunvolt, blabbering about his group's virtual idol. Some kind of muse, I think that's what it's called in the English version. So, he stopped the type level, and you get control of GV after he checks in with his support team. You thought that GV's main deal is electricity. Puzzles will revolve around that of course, but most especially, combat. See, GV's gun doesn't actually deal a lot of damage, but it tags enemies, up to 3 of them, and it's stackable on a single one. Once it's done, you can unleash GV's electricity to home in on the tagged enemies, and it simply melts them away. Putting the flash field up also protects you from some specific attacks, like physical bullets and missiles. Enabling the flash field is bad news for your defense though, as it disables your most powerful defensive move, Prevasion. Prevasion makes you dodge any enemy attack at the cost of your flash field gauge. Technically, if you were to rely exclusively on Prevasion, attacking strictly in enemy downtimes, it could nullify the difficulty of the game, but if you're a tad reckless like I am, or if you care about score like I don't, it probably would not. The final piece of Gunvolt's kit are skills. You start with Astrosphere, a skill that creates a giant area of damage with rotating spheres around you, and as you defeat enemies, get XP, level up, you might learn some new skills, like some healing stuff or flash field related skills. However, using an offensive skill uses up all of your kudos and turns them into score, which brings up our next point, everything. Every single combat related action gives you kudos, with more technical with hard actions giving you more. Get hit 3 times since you've started accumulating kudos and you lose all of them. Hit a checkpoint or use an offensive skill and you bank the kudos into your score. Getting to the ranks in stages rely almost exclusively on good kudos management, as just clearing stages fast can get you to the A rank max, I'd say, in my experience. There's a bit more to say about Gunvolt's gameplay, and specifically the level design of GV1, but I'll get to that in a bit. But as far as first impressions go, that's pretty much it. And man, that's one hell of a hook! GV controls super well, and something that I really like about all these mechanics combined is that it creates some sort of self-directed difficulty slider. A lot of frustration in older Megaman titles were that some parts of the stage just felt like gotcha moments, where you had to get gotten once and learn and never have it happen again. Prevasion removes a lot of that, while kudos and score still makes you actually commit and try to play the game and memorize its stages. Also, the flash field and skills are cool. A bit of a peek into the rest of the series, I think GV's style is more about precision, while other protagonists would have more flashy speed and combos, that kind of stuff. GV's gameplay can feel a little bit less flashy, if not less satisfying, because of this, but thankfully those two elements still make him feel cool to play. That may not mean much to some, but I can appreciate it. Okay, so we got a basic idea of how things are presented to you on the first stage, so let's dive a bit deeper into the stages themselves before we talk about the story. Something GV1 loves to do is stunt around GV's electrical powerful puzzles and level design. I really like it personally. The game is never too mean about it, and brings a lot of diversity in the stages. Minara is kind of evil in the first playthrough. Some jumps definitely got the better of me, which introduced me to one of the series' signature mechanics. Anthem is a skill that has a chance of triggering when you die, resurrecting you and giving you a shit ton of power. Unlimited jumps, unlimited flash field gauge, and a J-pop song because, I don't know. This skill has a better chance of activating if you talk to a companion before a mission, which gives you more reason to get interested in what they have to say. Bosses are also a big part of the equation here. which probably isn't too surprising. Reach the end of the stage for a nice little chat with one of them. Shout out to their transform designs, by the way. I really like them, and well, remembering this will be useful down the line. Dancing around with a boss involves a lot of quick reflexes and or remembering. Bosses usually have 3 phases, with phase 2 introducing more attacks, and phase 3 starting with the boss ultimate move. Overall, I'd say most of them are good and interesting. There's just one specific one I do not vibe with, but I'll get into it when we discuss spoilers. Speaking of, in addition to its unique gameplay mechanics, Gunvolt separates itself with a lot of its competitors by focusing on its universe and story. In the intro stage I mentioned earlier, it showed that the game takes place in a futuristic universe where humans start to develop powers called Septimas. Obviously that raises a certain amount of concern if some people were just able to breathe fire out of nowhere, chaos would ensue. So for better or for worse, some kind of structure had to emerge to keep track of all of that nonsense. Unfortunately, that took the form of Sumeragi, a gigantic conglomerate that notably has a big hold on Japan's energy. When it comes to what the public sees, Sumeragi actually allowed Japan to remain somewhat peaceful after adepts, aka people with Septimas, started appearing, notably to the development of glaives, soul-like devices that allow one to control and contain their Septima, and also return it to them. Now, when it comes to what they actually do, Sumeragi has a hand in human experimentation, and a shit ton of them actually. One of them Gunvolt is actually a result of. His Azure Striker Septima, which grants him control over electricity, was granted to him as part of an experimentation. Asimov, the leader of a terrorist organization fighting Sumeragi, frees him, and GB joins his organization to oppose Sumeragi's weird shit. All fine and dandy, except that the mission of the intro stage has GB seek out a powerful AI and or tool called the Muse, which would supposedly grant Sumeragi control over all adepts, which obviously is not something we want at all. There's just a problem. GB retrieves the Muse and it's a girl, with a Septima hooked to a machine, clearly against her will. Asimov is adamant about GB's mission staying the same. The Muse must be destroyed. And GB's answer basically boils down to, thanks, but no thanks. You gave me a chance to live all those years ago. I want to give the same to her. Rescuing the girl, GB quits Quill, their organization, and basically still works for them as a freelancer. Yeah, it turns out state opposing terrorists isn't too good on your resume, even if your state does suck and deserve it. So even though GB goes freelance, most of his work is still with Quill. Work that's set up a Megaman-like stage selection. Every stage and subsequent boss to defeat is a contract by Quill, in order to weaken Sumeragi's hold over key areas. You also get a middle stage where you fight Copen, a human that really fucking despises adepts and wants them all gone. That's your rival character, say hello to him. And of course, really castle-like stages where you get to enjoy a boss rush. The story of the game mostly moves in between batches of stage. Once you've defeated half the bosses, at the middle stage, and once you've defeated the other half of the bosses. And then shit starts going down. Aside from that, the story doesn't move too much inside the stages proper. You get to interact with the bosses a bit, but nothing much. Aside from Copen, who does provide a ton of lore through some interactions. At least in the 3DS version of the game and the default settings of the Striker Pack. Yeah, it turns out the English translation of the original release wasn't great, even lacked a lot of dialogue, especially mid-stage dialogue. And while the Striker Pack includes both the OG translation and an updated, complete version, it defaults to the OG. Oops! Because of that, on my 2 playthroughs of this game, I simply thought that's how the game was, and mid-stage dialogue was a Gunvolt 2 feature. From what I see, GB1 on the updated translation does provide the same experience as GB2, which means you get a lot of flavor dialogue when playing stages, which is cool, I really like that. That aside, I want to speak about the game's climax, so I need to spoil you all for a bit. So, use YouTube chapters or the timecode display on your screen right now, if you don't want to get spoiled on the actual plot points. Alright, you don't mind? Cool, let's do this. Before the boss rush stages, once you've defeated all the regular bosses, one of them leaves again mysteriously and kidnaps Jewel. Jewel? I don't know, I want to avoid her name because I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but girl with the Muse. GV is extremely pissed, somewhat desperate even, and goes to utterly crush the revived bosses on his way to rescue Jewel. Copen confronts you again, still dead set on killing all adepts, which definitely includes you, now armed with a weapon that replicates the power of one of the bosses that could neutralize other Septimas. You still stomp him though, and continue on your merry way. He doesn't take the loss too well, but you see, Copen's father is actually a very important character, a scientist that worked for Sumeragi, developing a lot of their adept controlling technologies. Said scientists predicted that one day adepts would grow too strong and be a threat to humanity as a whole. a prediction that actually comes to pass differently in other future games. The Luminous Avenger IX games play it straight, while Gunvolt 3 plays around the wording of it. For this reason, I think it's very interesting that it's brought up this early in the franchise, especially since, well, Copen isn't exactly a sympathetic character, not for a long while at least, so you're bound not to trust his words or opinions too much. And yet when the time comes, kind of forced to do. Anyway, you eventually reach Nova, Sumeragi's head honcho. That's set on using the Muse as a tool to keep adepts under his thumb, and the country in order. He also uses her power to shield himself in the upcoming fight against GV. I don't have a lot to say about Nova himself, to be honest. He has a cool second form, his back and forth with GV is entertaining. But because you only meet him at the end of the game, unlike Copen or the other thing the game is cooking, well, I don't have a lot of thoughts for him. Oh, what's the other thing the game is floating? Well, after finishing that boss fight and rescuing Jewel, on your way back you find Asimov! Yeah, what is he doing here? Oh, he wants to use GV's power and Jewel's Septima to stage an adept uprising and kill all humans while Sumeragi is down. Oh, cool! Neither of them are too hot about this, so Asimov whips out Plan B, Copen's gun. He got by kicking his ass on the way there and shoots both GV and Jewel dead. And unless you got the 7 Chaos Emeralds, which are scattered through the stages, sometimes in noxious places, that's it! This man who gave GV a chance at life promptly takes it back as soon as GV extends that chance to someone else. That's fucked up. Because I didn't have the gems, I didn't feel like collecting them, I actually jumped to IX1 before coming back to playing this game. And oh boy, I'm glad that I did come back. Collect 7 stupid gems and GV resists death barely. Jewel doesn't have the luck and only lives on in her Septima, which fuses with GV to bring him back from the brink. At this point, GV is extremely powered up by her anthem and goes to confront Asimov. The two men can only duke it out at this point. Things have gone way too far for either of them to back off. And then... oh lord, this fight is amazing. Asimov is revealed to also have the Azure Striker Septima and makes full use of it against GV, as well as Copen's gun. GV fights back using his own Azure Striker and Lumen's Atom. He even uses Pervasion. He clashes his Flash Fiddle with yours and pulls out Voltaic Chain as an ult. This is a move you can unlock as GV, but very late into the game, with a level that's probably way higher than the one you would likely fight Asimov at. And all the while, Asimov fucking info dumps you about Adept lore. That's really cool. I like that kind of fight, when the enemy has the same kind of power that you do in video games. It's one of my favorite things. Fighting Asimov especially is meaningful for GV's character. It's just a bingo! It's a bingo of everything you need for a fight to feel meaningful and hyped as a final boss fight. It was worth the stupid gems. Once the dust settles, Asimov dies and GV just kinda has to continue his life. Away from Quill, as he leaves his former comrades without a word. Without Jewel, no longer living at his side, but as Lumen inside of him. Man, I'd like to punch down on GV, and this is not the last time this will happen at all. The entire climax of this game is super strong, and it left me wanting for more. That's pretty much Gunvolt 1. I hope I managed to share just how unique and good that game felt to me. It hooked me by being a Megaman-like game, but I said for its unique flair, which I think is why this game is, to me, the perfect example of a spiritual successor done right. Obviously, I highly recommend you give that game a shot by yourself. I left a ton of things out, metric ton of things out, as to still leave you with enough to discover on your own, both in gameplay and story. And I hope that I showcased just enough of what I loved for you to grow an interest of the game, without spoiling it too much for you. It's a hard balance to reach, actually. I hope I did good, or will do better in the future. If you do have an interest in the game, but can't or don't want to play it yourself, I do recommend Novazone's Gunvolt retrospective. They go deeper and more methodically about everything GV related. I for one want to go into what I specifically liked, and what made me like the entire franchise. But that video is honestly quite exhaustive and of super high quality. Now, the Gunvolt series I'm not nearly done with. This series has example in good and bad of how a series can evolve over time. GV1 was a perfect spiritual successor to another franchise, and a very good first entry in its own series. Next time, I want to talk about IX1 and how that game is, to me, the perfect spin-off. I hope to see you then!